Welcome to part 2 of this video on the context of 16th and 17th century poetry. Continuing on from the previous part, we're going to talk now a little bit about the metaphysical poets and an example of one of their poems. We're then going to look at how to bring in context to an exam style question. So, the metaphysical poets were never a consciously formed group. They're simply a term we use to describe a certain style of poetry written in the late 16th and early 17th century. They are greatly appreciated for their skill and imagination. They often used unusual images, elaborate comparisons, and complex metaphors. These extended metaphors and comparisons are called conceits, and that's a very important word to use when talking about metaphysical poetry. These images come from the Renaissance fascination with new scientific discoveries and new ideas about society and religion. And like Shakespeare, they explored the relationship between the individual man and the universe, a common theme of the writer. They often included humour and sexual references, and they combined philosophical ideas with comedy, humour and wit to create original love poems, or as I like to call them, lust poems. They're often about trying to persuade a woman to sleep with them. And so here is an example of one of the most famous metaphysical poems, The Flea by Donne. So I'm just going to scroll through it now so that you can have a read of it. Definitely pause the video so that you can look at it. So here I've just identified the conceit of the poem is essentially that the blood of two people is mixed in a flea and it's as innocent as having sex, therefore they should have sex. And that's the kind of extended metaphor of the poem. He uses rhetorical questions here as more persuasive language. And that's another common theme of the metaphysical poets, that they use incredibly persuasive language. And as we can see here, I've just identified that it talks about anatomy and the body and blood, which was a common thing that people were thinking about at the time because of the advances in science. And also the invention of the microscope means that people were seeing things on a much smaller scale than before, and so talking about a flea means that you can see this influence of thinking, that people were thinking about things on a much smaller scale. And obviously the conceit here, it creates the comedy of the poem.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're looking for an amazing A-level English literature resource, join me today in my series of engaging bite-sized video tutorials. Together, we will concisely cover all the important concepts required by your exam board specification, as well as practically apply what we have learnt through exam-style questions, focusing on how best to structure your answers in order to maximise marks. See you soon, and together, let's make A-level English literature a walk in the park.